live to talk about the pattern that just launched today, or I should say patterns that just launched today. 3 patterns, all quilted jewelry patterns. And I did a launch video. It was like 12 minutes long because I went over so many things. And of course I have requests for like actually showing me making it, and y'all, they're coming. I'm working on so many things, I promise. But I thought we would hop on live and get started. I have about an hour, maybe 90 minutes tops to sew together an earring, see if I can make it in that time, because I've got one of the more complicated ones that I want to make, and I want to go over tools with you first. So we'll see how quickly we can do this, because it always takes me twice as long when I'm answering questions on live as well. Okay, so we're going to make a design from the volume 1, and I've already printed out the pages. So if you buy the PDF copy, these are the last 2 pages in your PDF. If you buy the printed copy, these pages, you can either photocopy the pages in the pattern, or you can print these out. There's a QR code that will take you to where you print these out. And then the first thing you want to do is there's a 1 inch right there, and you want to measure that. Now, like, that's a kind of a traditional foundation paper piece thing. Honestly, if it doesn't measure exactly 1 inch, you're, for volume 1 and volume 2, you don't ever sew pieces together, so it doesn't, the scale doesn't really matter as long as you're happy with what size it came out at. So I put my 1 inch square on there, and that's perfect. But if yours doesn't measure at 1 inch, you can honestly still use it. You just want to know that this measurement here is not going to be a 1/4 inch. Not the end of the world. Not a huge deal. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Toby. Thank you. Okay, so I have done, let's see. I've actually made a bunch of volume 1 because I wasn't planning on making this into a whole series, and I gave them to a bunch of friends at QuiltCon. So they are really fun to give away. I've only made 1 pair of these flying geese, and I want to make myself another pair because I like, it's not that they're my favorite, like a lot of these designs are my favorites. I just want to make it. I just want to have an excuse to make another pair of the flying geese. Okay, so I've printed these out onto paper. The paper that I'm using here is the Electric Quilt newsprint, and I have an affiliate link in the description of this video as well as the original video if you want the link to that. Carol Doak also has great foundation paper. You could print this out onto everything. Hi, Madeline from New Jersey. Hi, Dragon Lady. Hi, Amy. So fun seeing everyone here. Go ahead and pop in the comments, say hi. All right, so I've already cut out my pieces that I'm going to use for my earrings. This is foundation paper piecing, and these pieces, they look tiny because they are, but honestly, because like we're always going to have something this big, so we're never dealing with something super, super tiny. It's really not that bad. All right, other tools that you're going to need. You're going to need some kind of cutter. You can use an add an 1/8. Some people have found, especially with the quality of fabric that you use, that an 1/8 of an inch seam is really tiny, and that can cause things to rip. So some of my pattern testers didn't like the add an 1/8. I like doing a 3/16. I don't think there is an add a 3/16. So I use a ruler where I can just kind of eyeball where my 3/16 inch is. Your seam allowance, you want them to be nice just in case they kind of like show through on the front, but your seam allowances don't have to be exactly perfect because we're cutting those after. When we do traditional quilting, we want our seam allowances to be perfect, because if you cut a 2 inch piece and then you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, it finishes at 1.5 inches, and it needs to for the quilt to like all puzzle together at the end. And if your 1/4 inch seam allowance is like an 1/8 of an inch shy, so instead of a 1/4 of an inch, it is, let's see, 7/6, hold on, that'd be 1/2 inch. 4/16 is a 1/4. So if you've got a 3/16 instead of a 1/4, I should have been able to do that math. If you've got a 3/16 instead of a 1/4 inch on your seam allowance, your quilts aren't gonna fit together the way that they're supposed to. So with paper piecing, it's great because if your 1/4 inch isn't exactly a 1/4 inch, meh, we were cutting it off at the end anyway. Okay, you want some good scissors for when we go to cut this out. If you're doing any of the curve designs, You want pinking shears. You can do it with good scissors as well, but pinking shears are nice to go around those curves. There's no foundation paper piecing in the actual like there's no curved foundation paper piecing. It's you make the design and then you get to cut it in a curved shape. Foundation piecing water pen is amazing for taking the papers out at the end. We're going to use a rotary cutter. I have a little mat here because I'm hoping to be able to do this all in the frame for you to be able to see it all. So I've got a little mat and a rotary cutter along with my little ruler. So that's what I'm using today. A seam roller, this isn't a requirement. Lots of foundation paper piecers like them. We can also finger press, especially if you're using good quality fabric. Hi from North Carolina. Hi from Florida. Nice to see everyone. This is one of the new tools that just came out. This is the ballpoint turning tool, and this is going to help when turning it right side out. And then some jewelry hardware. And then I have a mid-weight stabilizer. If it says mid-weight, it should be fine. It's a fusible stabilizer, and that's just going to help give the earring a little more body than just be 2 layers of fabric. All right, so those are the tools. Now we have to pick fabric. Let me know what you think. All right, the first step in picking fabric is you want to pick like smaller designs, generally speaking. So like this is a really big design, and you can see if I try to put it in like all the tiny pieces of an earring like this, you're going to lose that design, and you're also going to lose the cohesiveness of the color placement. So if you do use a big print like this, know that like you're going to be picking tiny squares. So you might be picking tiny pieces of color. Like I could use this fabric for an earring like this, but I might pick like the orange as the very center, and then maybe I would do pink as the first round, and then I would do like this teal or kind of aqua-y color as the second round. And that way you could use one fabric for one earring, but it looks like 3 different fabrics in there. Okay. Would you recommend someone who's never done foundation paper piecing? I feel like tiny foundation paper piecing is a bit easier than big foundation paper piecing because it's also contained. So something like the economy block, I feel is like pretty easy to do as foundation paper, like small foundation paper piecing. Big foundation paper piecing, you have paper and you have fabric, and sometimes they kind of flop a little bit and you don't keep it smooth. But because we're dealing with smaller pieces, it all stays really contained and it all fits really easily underneath the bed of even like my Baby Lock Jubilant. I'm doing this on the Baby Lock Ballad today, not on the Jubilant, because I wanted to sit down and I wanted to be able to have the space here and have one camera angle and not have to like mess with camera angles. So, oh my goodness, we are getting some inappropriate messages today. We're just going to remove those. Okay, so fabrics. So smaller prints, things that read as like this is a kind of an all over. So things that read as like a solid color from a little bit of a distance are great. And then like this kind of reads as a solid color, but it has some of these pinks in here. So you want to just know if I'm going to place those, where they're going to end up in it. I thought I removed that one already. All right. This is why it's going to take twice as long. Yep. There we go. Okay. So I was looking at some fabrics. By the way, like this one, you can see it kind of reads as white, but it has these little dots in there. So you just want to be aware, like if the dots kind of end up in spots, you might not want to use a fabric that has a spread out design like this. And a fabric like this one here, if you end up with a part that's a branch and then a part that's a floral, you can absolutely fussy place these so that you always have the floral parts, and that will look great. Or you could have always just these neutral parts, and there's some really big neutral pieces. So again, this is one that might be able to be used one fabric for multiple parts an earring. Like some of these only use 2 fabrics, so you could look at doing the neutral and then the flowers in different spots to be able to get different designs. And then you could even use some of these like stick portions to be able to get like stripes or lines in there. All right. Oh my goodness. Deleting folks has been, that's gonna be a lot of work today. That's fine. That's fine. It's fine. All right. I thought that I might do something like this. I feel like there's a lot of contrast between the two. On the original one that I did, which is this one here, there's not a ton of contrast between the two. And so I thought I would do something like this, which has a little bit more contrast between the two fabrics. So the first thing that I'm going to do is cut myself off some of the fabric. I'm using Art Gallery Fabrics. It has a nice weave. It has a higher thread count and a tighter weave than a lot of fabrics. So it's really nice for doing small piecing. And I like this, like, I don't know, it's like a little periwinkle purple. Yeah, definitely spring here. And then I think I'm going to use the floral for inside the flying geese, and then the purple is the background behind this flying geese, but you could do it either way. I mean, I could, if I wanted, do one earring one way and one the other way, and that would be fun. All right, I'm not going to show you the mess over there, I don't think. We'll see, maybe later in the video. But I just cut myself a rough strip of each of the fabrics. You can press them. I'm not going to. I'm just going to try to avoid the folds as I'm sewing. If I need to, I could go press them. But where do you find the patterns? So you can ask your local quilt shop. They'll be able to get them in soon. The printed versions of the patterns are going to be in next week, so I'll be able to ship those out. And then the PDF versions of the patterns are available on my site right now, which is carolinamorepatterns.com. Dragonfly, yes, reporting them is great, and I just need to get in there and block them. It's obnoxious, but I do. Okay, so when foundation paper piecing, if you've never foundation paper pieced before, just remember that you're always looking at the front of something. So this is the front of the pattern, and this is going to be the front of your quilted project. Front of the pattern, front of the quilted project. And it's numbered, so you know which order to go in. So I'm going to switch you over to the other view so that we can work on this together, and so that it's not in reverse. If I don't switch to the front facing camera, then you stay in reverse, and that's a little bit difficult for trying to learn what's going on. All right, that should be enough. Okie doke. All right, so I have my pattern, and my fabric number 1 is my floral. So I'm going to cut off a piece. I'm not going to worry too much about being like protective or careful of how much fabric I use. This can be made with scraps. These are essentially scraps of fabric. I'm not going to then police how careful I am with scraps of fabric. Oh my goodness. I think by the end of this live, I'm going to have blocked twice as many people as ever. All right, I'm using a glue pen. You could use just an Elmer's glue stick. And on the back of this, I'm just putting a dab of glue. Just a little bit to hold that first piece in place. And I find that for the first piece, that's helpful. And now we can hold this up to light. There we go. Oh, wow, that actually works really nicely. You can see that the fabric covers not only just the entire one, but at least a 1/4 inch around it. And that's what you need. You need at least a 1/4 inch around that segment 1 to be filled in by the fabric, and then you know you're good. So I'm working on making some foundation paper piece earrings using my new foundation paper piece jewelry pattern. All right. Now I'm using a solid for my second fabric, which is good because there is no right or wrong side to solid fabric. So that is actually really helpful, but you can do this with a print as well. And this is going to be the right, I'm going to have this be the right side of my fabric. And I want to put the fabric right sides together. Let's see if we can see through the light again. Oh, a little bit. I have a light table over here, but I'm not going to use it for today. And you want to make sure that when I stitch between 1 and 2, and I'm going to stitch starting a 1/4 inch away here and then go past a 1/4 inch on that side, that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance of fabric up above here. And an easy way to check that is to fold on that line and see I definitely have more than a 1/4 inch there. So I'm good. And I'm going to have this down to a 3/8 inch seam allowance, so even 3/8 would be fine. Okay, so for stitch length, because I'm using the foundation piecing water pen to remove the papers, I don't always reduce my stitch length, but I did in this case because it's tiny piecing and the seams are so small, I just want those extra stitches on those tiny seams. So I went ahead and reduced my stitch length. And now I'm going to sew on that line, but starting a 1/4 inch before and extending all the way through. And you can go faster to a 1/4 inch after. Now, especially when you're new, you want to double check. So I want to double check that I got all the fabric. I did. I want to double check that when I lift this up into the spot to cover, that it will cover the shape number 2 and a 1/4 inch around, which it absolutely does. And so now we can trim this down. So we're going to fold our paper out of the way so all of our paper is on one side, our seam allowance is on the other side. And then with that mat and rotary cutter, you could do this with scissors as well. Oh, let me find a side on here. And I'm going to do about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just I like a little bit bigger than 1/8 of an inch, but a little smaller than a 1/4 inch because all those seam allowances are going to add bulk. And I know I had a rotary cutter. I had like 2 rotary cutters over here. Oh, here's one. I think I had 3 rotary cutters over here at one point. Okay. So we're just going to cut. And it's good to have a little trash can here by me. Then I'm going to open this up. And you can finger press, which is just kind of like when you're doing origami, press it with your fingers to give that fabric a good crease. Or you can use a seam roller. And you get a really nice press with a seam roller. All right, so that is fabric 1 and 2 put on. And now we're going to keep going, adding fabric 3, and that'll finish off our first flying goose unit. So I want to make sure that my piece is big enough. It is. Same thing, put it on. You can always double check to make sure that you have at least that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and stitch it in place. And you can see I'm not dealing with tiny little pieces. I'm not dealing with lining up the edges of tiny little pieces. All right, when we're going to fold this out of the way, this stitching on our first seam is going to be in the way. No big deal. You just kind of let the paper rip so you can expose that seam allowance. Seam allowance looks good. If I pull this up, looks good. So I'm going to trim up that seam allowance. Same thing, 3/8 of an inch. Then you can finger press it. press with your seam roller to get a nice good press. The reason we don't use an iron is part because having a hot iron with everything else we have going on here is a lot, but also the heat of an iron can make your paper ruffle, and we want to keep this paper as flat as possible. Okay, I'm going to add piece number 4. So piece number 4, I can fold that already if I want. Make sure I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the seam allowance is going into the number 4 because remember this fabric is right sides together with my project, and it's going to end up flipping up. All right, so now we're just going to pull this out of the way. No! I ripped the whole thing. I have never done that. Of course that's going to happen on live. Of course it's going to happen on live. All right, how am I going to fix this? I've literally never had this happen before. All right. I don't know how someone else would fix this. This is how I'm going to fix it. I'm going to grab my other piece because you can print as many of these off as you need for your own personal use. Obviously, you can't go printing it off for everybody else. That's copyright violation. I did a video on that earlier this month. All right. I'm going to trim this up just so I can try to line this up accurately. That's wild. I never have had this happen before. Of course these things happen on live. All right, I'm going to re-sew this seam, which should be no big deal. Hopefully it'll go more or less right on the last one. So Jill says use Scotch tape. The challenge with using Scotch tape is that I'm going to want to rip these out. And if there's tape, the tape won't rip. So like I could have used washi tape. I guess that would have been an option. I could have used a washi tape. And I have like seam guide tape, which is washi tape. So that would have been another option. But I stitched basically right on top of itself. All right. If it happens again, we're totally using washi tape. But you don't want any kind of like plasticky tape because you won't be able to rip it out underneath those seams. There we go. So that is, you can kind of see the first flying geese and then the 2 sides, and this is the second flying geese unit, and then there's going to be 2 sides here in a minute. Let's go ahead and seam roll this. There we go. That big enough? I did. That's big enough. All right, so we're going to go from number 4 to number 5. And it's paint by number quilting. I'm just filling in the numbers. The fun thing about this flying geese pattern is if you want, like I'm making all of my geese the same color, but there's 6 different geese here. So you can go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. You could do like a rainbow. You could do a gradient from like dark blue to light blue, or from dark blue to light blue, depending on which way you want. And also I tend to hang them this way like flying geese, but you can also put it on like this with arrows down. There is not necessarily a right way. All right, we're going to keep going. Keep sewing, keep sewing. Oh, Robbie and Barbara says it was a very informative video along with the one on tariffs. Yeah, the one on tariffs, I got some upset people on it. But it's very much the reality for businesses right now. And it will be rolling down to quilters. So I thought y'all should know, without getting political, what that looks like, what that means. Okay, so we're going to can I put this all in the frame at the same time? We'll see. So I don't have to keep moving things out of the way. Normally when I foundation paper piece, I don't have so many things. Well, I mean, I don't have them. I have more space. I go back and forth in my space. I have a bigger space. But I'm trying to keep everything in the frame so I don't have to move the camera in and move the camera out, because that's going to make you dizzy and it's going to make me crazy. So, all right, we're going to not pull too hard on our paper. Now you know for sure that this was unedited. If I was recording this, I probably would have just started again and edited it out, because it just adds, the video is going to be long enough already and it's just going to add extra nonsense to it. So I like to leave mistakes in when it makes sense. I don't know, I might have left it in. We'll never know now. It's alive. This is unedited. Okay. So now we've got our second. We need to keep going. We've got 4 more. Hi, Stitching Life Together. Well, the pattern just released today. The PDF pattern is available online, and the printed pattern should be in next week for me to ship out. So you can pre-order it with your favorite quilt shop, and we'll get those out to them ASAP so you can start making your own quilted jewelry. Quilted, these are so much fun. You can use them for making your own earrings, which is what I do with a lot of them, but you can also turn them into zipper pulls or necklace charms or bracelet charms or bag charms, which is super fun. I have all kinds of hardware that I've organized and developed so that the shops can order the hardware in as well, and you'll have everything you need to just sit down and sew. You don't have to go to 4 different shops or order from a bunch of different places online. That way you can also support your local quilt shop. Because we love supporting our local quilt shop. Okay. Barbara says, it just encourages others that mistakes happen to us all. Oh, they absolutely do. I fully expected when I started this live that there's a chance I would be seam ripping on this live. All right, we're going to go number 8. And honestly, I could do number 9 and then number 8. It doesn't matter. It's just, as a designer, you have to number them in some order. So I just numbered them in this order. But you can, for this one, 8 and 9 are basically equivalent. But you can't do 10 before you've done both 8 and 9. Whether you do 8, 9 or 9, 8, you have to do those 2 before you do 10. How do you know what is right side on a solid color fabric? Do you have to go with the grain? You don't have to go with the grain. This is foundation paper piecing, so the foundation paper is going to hold everything in place. So I don't worry about the grain at all. And with a solid fabric, either side can be the right side. You can decide what your right side is. It's what's right for you, I suppose. But those are great questions. Ooh, turning them into magnets. You can also turn them into pins. I found here, where are they? I have these that I bought forever ago that are those like flat back pins to like pin onto, so you can turn them into like the equivalent of fabric button, like not buttons as in like to button your coat, but buttons as in like, you know, buttons that have slogans and like the reusable sticker type buttons. Instead of putting a sticker on you, you can put a button on you with slogans and I don't know. So you can turn them into pins too, which is super fun. The sky is the limit. Your imagination is really the limit of what you can do with these. There's 3 patterns that all launched today. Each pattern has 8 different designs. In part because when I did the first one, I didn't think that I was going to be making 2 more. And so I wanted to put a bunch of designs all in one. But then as I was working on it and getting all the hardware, I wanted to make sure that it was worth it for quilt shops. Oh my gosh, did I cut this? Oh, no, it's good. I was looking. Yeah, that's a little small, but it's fine. Because it covers, so you can see it's covering number 9 and has a 1/4 inch around, so I'm fine. But it would not be enough for 12. You could see if that was stitched on 12, that would not be enough, but it's fine for 9. A corner bookmark would be cool. You totally could. They're just basically tiny mini baby quilts. Like teeny tiny miniature quilts. And I can't wait to see what everyone does with them. Because I feel like I'm pretty creative, but once I get out into the wild quiltiverse, y'all are really, really creative. Which is also why I wanted to do this first demo video as a live. So I could really go over with y'all how it goes together and you could sit here and ask your questions. And in real time and get them answered so that like if there's a question for me to show you something, I can easily show you, because sometimes questions trying to reply in by like texting it, messaging it, typing it out isn't as effective as just being able to show it, especially in real time. So foundation paper piecing, especially tiny foundation paper piecing like this, is also really great for scrap use. I mean, obviously it's great for scrap use because you're using tiny pieces. So this is perfect for scraps. And honestly, it won't even make a dent in your scraps because you're just using such tiny pieces. But it's also great because, as it was mentioned before, you don't need to worry about the grain of the fabric. So with scraps, we don't always know where our grain is going, or, you know, we're trying to make best use of a scrap. So we have to decide, am I going to use a scrap, or am I going to have to figure out, like, I use a scrap, but it's going to be at an angle. That's totally fine. These pieces, we're keeping the paper in until after it's basically finished. So you don't have to worry about the grain because, and the stretch from bias, because it's never going to come into play. It isn't going to come into play at all. When you place the ruler to cut off a 1/4 or an 1/8 of an inch, I go between an 1/8 and a 1/4. So I do like a 3/16 inch seam allowance. And then what do I do here? Oh, just looked like there was a fold. There isn't. And I've been doing it with the ruler and rotary cutter. But you can also, if you wanted, like eyeball it. Like here, I'll eyeball this with scissors. And that's nice and clean. And you could do that as well. The ruler and rotary cutter, part of it is habit, and also it does give a really nice clean cut. And I have that right here. But with tiny little seams like this, with bigger foundation paper piecing, it's hard to get a nice straight clean cut because you're going to have to cut multiple times with the scissors. But these are such tiny pieces that you can just snip it right off, and so you could get away with doing with scissors if you want. And then for those who joined in a little later, I am using a shorter stitch length. Because I use the foundation piecing water pens to take my papers out, I don't usually use a smaller stitch length. But I am here because the seams are just so tiny, and I want to have that extra security in these tiny, tiny seams of just having a couple extra stitches in there. With long seams and big foundation paper piecing, I don't use a smaller stitch length when I'm going to use the foundation piecing water pen to take those seams out. All right, I think we're down to 5 pieces left to add on here. Oh, I'm doing great on time. I didn't think I was going to be doing this great on time. I wasn't even sure that I was going to get through stitching one of these between questions and going through. So the patterns are available if you're a PDF pattern person. They're available in my shop right now. But if you want the paper patterns, you can order them now, and they'll be out next week. And you can definitely go through your local quilt shop. They can order them through whoever their favorite distributor is and get them ordered and get them to you through your local quilt shop. What's the water pen? We will be showing it. Oh, I didn't know that I was going to have time, but we'll be showing it, and it is to take the papers out. It can be tedious to take the papers out when you're finished ripping the paper, or when you're finished stitching it all. Ripping the papers can be a tedious part, but the foundation piecing water pen, it softens the paper with water. I'm not going to use that M word that people don't like, but it dampens that paper, and that makes the fibers in the paper less sticky together, and so it makes it easier to rip out the papers when you dampen with the foundation piecing water pen. Doesn't matter what paper you use. You can use regular copy paper. The better or higher quality the paper, the harder it is to rip it out at the end. So a lot of foundation paper piecers prefer newsprint style paper. I have links to 2 different newsprint style papers down in the comments. One's from Electric Quilt. It's their newsprint paper, and the other is the Carol Doak foundation paper that's been around for years. And they both come in like a pack of, I don't know, it's like 100 or 200 sheets. And you just print it off on your regular printer. Right, just need a couple more pieces. And hi, Amy, it's good to see you here. It would be cool to make as Christmas ornaments for a table. These could absolutely be Christmas ornaments. 100%. And if you wanted, like with this design, instead of going the whole way, I could have stopped here, and I could have made the earring a little shorter too. So with some designs, you can stop short and you don't have to make the whole thing. That's also an option. So if you say, oh, I like that, but I don't want it quite so tall, then just stop. I should make a pair of shorter ones at some point, just to show how you can. There's so many ideas for videos. I don't know if y'all want to watch all the videos on all the ideas that I have for this quilted jewelry. Barbara says that the foundation piecing water pen is amazing for FPP. I'm so glad. All right, last piece of fabric. This came together pretty quick. I don't know, 20, 25 minutes. And that was while chatting and also making a mistake. I think it's pretty good. I think we did well. Let's see, just checking to make sure that all right, I think I've gotten all the answers. If I haven't answered your question, please ask it again because it means I didn't see it. I'm trying to keep on top of the comments. Hi, Karen. Yeah, mistakes totally part of the process. It happens. Okay. All right. It's all sewn together and it looks a bit like a hot mess right now. This is the front and this is the front of the pattern, but this is the front of the project and it looks definitely like a mess right now, but we're going to trim it up and it's going to look so much cleaner once it's all trimmed up. Use your regular Stitching Life Together says I used regular printer paper last year for my birthday. My mom got me a ream of paper, best gift. And Costco for a while, I don't know if they still do, but my Costco for a while had the recycled paper and it was a little better quality than the newsprint, but it wasn't like the good, like high quality bonded paper or whatnot. And I really like that for foundation paper piecing. So if you can find something with like a high recycled content as well, that's another option. All right, you ready to see? You ready to see? You ready? Ready? How cute. And then there's still going to be a 1/4 inch that's going to come off all the sides. I love the contrast on this one. I'm so happy. And you can see that print is small enough that it's still able to be visible in the design. So you can see. So yes. Okay. Now here is the big question. Which fabric do I use for the back? Because we're going to turn this into an earring. Which fabric do I use for the back? Do I use the floral or do I use the solid? I'm gonna let y'all get into the comments while I get my iron set up here. Let me know in the comments. Floral or solid? Oh, I'm seeing both. Hopefully I don't pop the breaker with my Aliso. I have several things running through here and it doesn't always like it when I have several things running on the same power strip as well as the Aliso. All right, I see both. And so I really like the floral and there's kind of an argument for both. In my mind anyway. The argument for the floral is definitely that you could be able to see a whole strip of the print on the back because earrings kind of naturally turn a little bit. So that's nice that you'd be able to see the whole fabric. But the argument for the solid is that the edges will look cleaner with a solid. So I'm gonna go with a solid. Get my iron warmed up. All right, iron is warming up. I have my piece of medium weight interfacing. I'm going to make the backing for both at the same time. Oh, I took my reading glasses off to set everything up, and now I can't read your comments anymore. Silly me. Stitching Life Together says, I think the front is the star of the show. It definitely is. What about strip floral in the center and then solid on? You totally could. You can piece your back. You absolutely can. I haven't, because for me it's all about the front, but you can absolutely design, like, just like with quilt backs, we might make our quilt backs a pieced quilt back. You can absolutely do the same with your earrings and have pieced earring backs. All right, I'm kind of off over here on the side for a second, fusing the interfacing to my fabric. All right. All right, so here's my fabric, has the interfacing fused on the back. And I'm going to sew this right sides together. And I want to sew all the way around, leaving myself a hole for turning. And here's where we get to decide, do we want to leave the hole at the bottom? The bottom, I think it's small, but I think it'll work. And I think it's going to be easier and cleaner to pull it through. I think when I did my original set, I did it on the side, but there's seams on the side. So I was like, where do I want to leave that hole for turning? Now I'm going to show you a trick that someone showed me years ago and I haven't played with, and I recently remembered it and was like, oh, I'm going to try that and see if it works. And this is in none of the other videos that I've done so far, but I will be including it in more of the videos. Okay, so I'm starting off the seam allowance. I will show you once it's all sewn as well. And I'm going to lock my stitches just because I want this to stay in place. And you know what? I'm going to see if I can bring y'all a little bit closer in. Hold on. So you don't need to see everything anymore, right? There we go. I think that's closer in. All right. So I gave myself a runway into where I'm actually sewing around the project. And you'll see why when we turn it. And then I have my hemostats here. And then I kept the paper on because this line is my 1/4 inch seam allowance line, so I can just sew all the way right on that black line. And the other option also with the back is that I could do one back in solid and one back in floral, because there's 2 earrings if I make 2 earrings. I'm going to do the same thing as I finish, going off the edge of the project. All right, I'm going to show you what I did. So I sewed up and then all the way around and then down. So I give myself like a stem going in here, and this is where normally I would have just started here and then gone all the way around and then here, and then I've just added these little stems, and that's going to make it easier to close it up when it's done, because this part is going to naturally flop back into the project. You'll see that. Okay, let's bring you back Oh, wrong. There we go. Bring you back up because we're going to cut this out. So you can do this with a rotary cutter and ruler. I'm just going to do it with scissors. And I'm going to trim the project. Now I do a medium weight interfacing just on the backing. And I've tried different methods. I've done a lightweight interfacing on both the back and the front. I don't like fusing interfacing to things that have been pieced. And the front's all pieced, and fusing interfacing can kind of make it lumpy looking. So I don't love fusing interfacing to this. So I'm just doing a medium weight only on the back. But you can interface this however you want. That's just my preference based on my experience. All right, do I have a foundation piecing water pen here that has water in it already? Of course I don't. Where did my water pen go? There it is. All right, this is foundation piecing water pen, and it has a tip. It's the spongy tip, not a brush tip. So you can see it's not, there's not like brush hairs that are, as I push on that. We're going to open it up. This one's empty, doesn't have any water in it, so I'm just going to fill that with water. I don't sell water refills, it's just regular old tap water. So just put some water in there. Where did my top go? Oh no! Did it roll off the table? See, I was worried that I was going to have to seam rip today, and instead I'm just losing my mind on absolutely everything else. Here's the lid. I screwed the top off. Oh, it's on the floor. I found it. It did roll off the table. Okay. So now I'm going to twist that back on. Hi, Jill. You're welcome for doing the demo. There will be more. We're going to be playing with this a lot. Also, in part because all the samples that I've made so far, I've either given away as gifts or are on the cover of the pattern. And so those are going to be going around as samples that people get to display in quilt shops and at different events. Excuse me. So I don't get to wear them, which is sad for me. So I want pairs that I can wear. And so I'll do demos of pairs so that I can wear them. All right, let's move in a bit closer. It's going to be weird trying to do this around the camera. All right, so the foundation piecing water pen, what it does is it just puts a little bit of water right on the seam. And it doesn't get so wet that like the fabric gets wet. But it just wets that paper. So the paper becomes easier to tear out. And you can do this in sections. This is small enough and it's not so hot out. It's not going to dry so quickly. So now I can rip out this paper. Rip out super easy. And I have this is the tweezer set. It's got my information on there, but this is a tweezer set that I came out with, I think 2 years ago. Same time as the foundation piecing water pen. That helps get into some of these little corners to get the papers out. Because getting papers out of little corners is always fun. Come here. And then when we get down to the bottom, because I made that mistake of ripping my paper somehow, I'll have to go extra again because there's going to be 2 layers of paper down there. Silly me. All right. So with foundation paper piecing, we leave the paper in until the last possible minute because it's providing the foundation for the project. It's holding all of the bias. It's keeping bias stretch out. I'll bring you up a little bit so I can get in here easier with both hands. Be faster. And so when I made that rip earlier and we were talking about tape, this is where washi tape, because it's tearable, not terrible, but it tears. It is it's able to tear. It is tear-able. Would be better than a plastic-based tape, because if you had plastic-based tape in the spot where these stitches were, trying to pull it out would be nonsense. I'd have to try to go in with scissors and go right up against the edge there. That wouldn't be fun. 0 stars. This is where I've got that double layer of paper. So we can take the top layer off. And again, this is where it's nice to have a little trash can for all our little scraps. Almost there. Yep, I have this double layer of paper here. You know, and that didn't get wet because of the double layer of paper. Let's give it a second. Can you take a piece of packing tape and pull up the paper? I don't think so, because I think it would stick to your stitches as well. And I don't know that it would rip away from the stitches, because part of what is having it pull is that you're pulling up against the stitches, and that's what's ripping it. So I don't know that I mean, you could try. And I'm not going to be too worried about this being too perfect today. Usually this is the part that I'll do in front of the TV, hanging out watching a movie with the family. Yep, double layer of paper, fun times. All right, it's gonna be good. Oh, those are sharp tweezers. I always forget that and poke myself. Okay, that's gonna be good enough for this project. All right, before we flip it right side out, I don't want to forget to clip my corners. And it's going to be easier to see from this side because there's only one line of stitching on this side. And when people clip their corners, generally what we've been taught is to do a clip at like a 45-degree angle across. I clip closer. Like, I don't have to clip quite as close to the threads, and I can give myself a little more room there at the threads or at that corner when I clip this shape. I call it a seagull shape. So I do a seagull clip on my corners. You're getting all of my best tips. I'm not leaving anything back, friends. I always try to give you all my best tips, but all of the best tips. So I do these seagull clips because you're able to take more, because the reason that we're clipping is because when it all gets turned, all of this extra fabric would all have to fit in this space right here. And so if you see, this triangle right here is going to fit right here, and this triangle right here is going to fit right here. And so I want to have as little stuff here in the corner, and that's going to let me poke my corners out really nice. So same down here. And I've got that corner for turning, so I'm being a little careful there. But I'm cutting, I don't have to cut quite as close to that corner stitch, and I'm able to get more fabric out of that corner. Hi, Sweden. Okay. I forgot to mention this tool at the beginning, but that's okay. I think a lot of you weren't necessarily here at the beginning an hour ago anyway. These are hemostats. These actually are from Riley Blake. They're cute hemostats, but you don't have to have cute ones. And they're just basically like really long tweezers. And they're perfect for a project like this. And I'm hoping that I left this hole big enough. Otherwise, this video is going to end very quickly, I guess, if I didn't. All right, so I put them in, and then I'm going to open them up. So you can see I'm opening them up. And then I just want to push the top in there. And then here on the Quilted hemostats, I'm just pinching that closed so that it's really secure. And now, and you know what, I'm going to flip y'all to front-facing view for this. Hi. It's been a minute. I've been here the whole time, though, I promise. Okay. Oh, I need my still on. So have it in my Quilted hemostats. And it's always that first little bit of getting it flipped over that is the trickiest. And I like this because it's a third hand. I can put it up against. And hi, new subscriber. And those hemostats, there we go. I can feel it coming over itself. Or holding it so I can get it out. Yep. Oh, Tina's my helper. She's saying, don't forget the thumbs up button. All right. So I have the whole thing turned right side out. And I turned off my iron. I'm going to want it here in a second. So now I can unhook those hemostats because it's turned right side out. And I can do an initial, like, get to the corners with the point of the hemostats just to start it. And then I have my ballpoint turning tool. I'm going to use that. I'll start with a bigger ball on the end. And you can see I'm like rotating it like this. And that's what's so nice about that ballpoint is that you can rotate it and it like rolls against the fabric. You can use all kinds of things. I mean, I don't crochet, so I don't have a crochet hook. I'm yarn challenged, so I don't knit or crochet. I designed this so exactly specifically for this project, although you can use it for other things as well, obviously. But I was looking for, you can ask my friends. I went to a bunch of vendors and was asking who has a good like pokey outy thing. And one company was like, well, we have this awl. And I was like, ooh, I don't want an awl. An awl is going to poke out that corner. So yeah, I mean, you can still bust through a corner with this, especially if your stitches aren't tight enough, especially if you push too hard. But oh my gosh, y'all, look how cute that is. All right, so this is my turning end. And because those stitches, those straight stitches that I did off that seam, look how easy that was to tuck that in. That made it so much easier to try to tuck in and get a nice clean tuck in. All right, I'm going to give this a press. What can you use if you do not have this tool to turn it out? You don't want to use scissors because you want to use something that's not pokey. So I've seen people use chopstick. That purple thing is a tool that's been out there for years for poking things out and turning things out. Yeah. When I design a tool, it's because I couldn't find a good option, right? So I just launched this tool today as well, the ballpoint turning tool. And it's because I couldn't find a good option. There were not other great options out there. I'll be doing a full video on this tool. It'll probably be out next week because I couldn't find one that I liked. There was not something that was able to get like really pretty corners. Look how pretty those corners are. So, okay, so ballpoint turning tool turned out, or turned right side out. I've pressed it. So I have about, I don't know, we'll see if we can in the next 15 minutes turn this into a finished earring. So let's bring it back over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch the hole closed and do a top stitch at the same time. All right, let's bring you over here. And actually, I think I can, yeah, look at that. We're going to zoom in. Maybe not quite. Hello. Try not to make you dizzy. There we go. That should be a good zoom. Karen, I'm so glad the hint helped. Okay, so my hole is right here, and I'm going to top stitch like a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. My stitch length is still at a shorter stitch length. I'm actually going to bring the stitch length up. I've done it both ways. I think the stitch length looks nicer when it's a little bigger. So now this is just a regular, this is a 3.5 that I have it at right now. And I'm going to go really close up to the edge. And I'm starting at the bottom, and the reason, you can start anywhere you want. The reason I'm starting at the bottom is because I have a light colored thread, and when I go over it to lock my stitches at the end, it's going to be hidden better in that light color than it is on that periwinkle. So that's just why I started at the bottom, but you can start anywhere. We're just going to go all the way around. And go slow, especially when you get to the end, because you don't want to go off the edge. All right, I have this thread. Oh, you still there? I think I am losing battery. Let's fix the battery issue, because I think my phone went darker because it's deciding that maybe it wants to die on me, does it? I wasn't watching my battery life. Why is this darker? I can't see anything. Oh yeah, my battery's dying. Oh no. And I don't know if this is going to help enough. All right, if I lose you, I lose you. I'm sorry. All right, that's not charging. And I don't know why. There we go. Okay, now we're charging. Okay. Oh, but I managed to unplug my sewing machine. That's talent. And I thought it was going to be that I was going to have to seam rip. I was like, this is going to happen. I haven't seam ripped on a live in a while. Oh, no. I I lost battery. All right, so while I was gone here for a second, here, let me put you back in. No. Put you back in here. There we go. Okay, so while we were gone for a second, I finished sewing this up. I went to plug in the power cord, and I accidentally unplugged the sewing machine. So this is really funny. I don't know if you'll be able to tell. I will always know. I thought about unpicking it, but I will always know. So the stitches on this side are bigger, and then I forgot to increase my stitch length when I plug the sewing machine back in. So the stitches on this side are smaller. Will anyone ever notice? No. No, these are like you would not have noticed unless I like pointed it out, but I pointed it out. So there we go. I got my thread ready. I got my pieces ready. We're gonna sew the earring wire on the top, and then we're gonna have a finished earring. Okay, so phew, okay, let's go to, there we go. We're plugged in and we're charging, and hopefully we'll stay charged. We'll see. All right, so I opened up a pack of earring wires. So these are the earring wire packs. And I opened up a pack. Let's bring this, there we go. Even better. And the way that jump rings come is they generally come, bouncing around. I don't know if you can see. They come open. Let me grab it with the pliers. Probably help you see better. They come twisted open like this, and that's just because of the way that they're made. They're twisted around a stick and then cut. And so this is from the twist on the stick. So we close it by just twisting it back together. And so now I have that closed jump ring so that I can sew it on the back of my earring. And I can decide now, do I want my earring to be pointing down or do I want it pointing up? I like the positivity of it being up for this. I don't know. I'm sure that there'll be a when I have them pointing down just for differences. And I could also do one pointing up and one pointing down, which would be fun. All right, I'm going to bury my thread in the back. So I'm just going to go through that back fabric, plus there's interfacing. So it's going to feel a little stiffer because of that interfacing, and bring it up to the top. And I'm going to double check on the front to make sure my needle didn't go through the front, and I can't see that thread on the front, and I can't. And now I'm going to bring that up. All right, here's my threads. Bury them. Now I'm going to do one loop. And then go to the loop. Now, if you purchase the pattern, there's a QR code that will take you to a more in-depth video on doing this. And that more in-depth video will actually be up on Monday for everyone. But it's already up on YouTube, and you get the secret access to that video if you buy the pattern. It'll be in there. So you don't have to go digging for it a year from now and say, where is it? There's a QR code in the pattern that will take you right to the video. So I did another loop, and this time I just hooked through that jump ring. And I don't know, like 5 or 6 stitches. I'm using a double layer of thread, double length of thread. So that way I get 2 stitches for every stitch I do, or two thread securities for every stitch I do. And you want to be careful, because if you keep going to the right, you'll end up with your jump ring not in the middle. It'll go over on one side a little bit. Not that anyone's going to notice, but just if you want to keep it in the middle, then you want to do your stitches. All right, I'm going to do a last one. There we go. And then you go through the loop. And that way we tie a knot. And now we're going to bury the thread back in. Double check that the needle's not visible on the front. I didn't accidentally go through. Pull that thread. That thread snips here somewhere. And then clip that thread. And now it disappeared. Those thread tail ends are buried in here. No one will ever see them. And I have a jump ring attached to the top. And now from that jump ring, I can attach whatever I want. I can turn this into a bag charm by attaching one of the big lobster clasps. I can turn it into an earring, which is what I'm going to do. I could attach another jump ring and use this, or I could even just use this existing jump ring and use it as a necklace charm or bracelet charm. So once the jump ring is like the jumping off point to everything else. But I'm going to grab my earring wire. I'm going to look where the open side is. And I'm going to just twist this to open it up. Then I'm going to place this on, making sure that the front of the design is towards the front of the earring wire. And then I'm just going to twist this up to close it. Oh. Trying not to bump the camera while I'm doing this. There we go. No. Come on. There we go. That's finished earring. With, yes, the bigger stitches on one side and the smaller ones on the other side. I will always see that. But this pair is for me. I'm going to make the other one, and this pair is going to be for me. And I'm excited about it. I love these colors. I think this is going to look great. So, all right, this video is not going anywhere. It will stay here on the YouTube channel, so you're welcome to watch it step by step as you make your own quilted earrings. The pattern, the PDF pattern is up in the shop now, but you can definitely go to your local quilt shop and ask them to order this pattern. And let me say hi to you. There we go. You can definitely go to your local quilt shop and ask them to order the pattern, and that way you can get the printed pattern in. The printed pattern does have a QR code so that you can print off the paper, the paper piecing papers. So if you don't have a printer that has a flatbed scanner on it, the paper copy gives you the flatbed scanner version so that you can put it on top of like a copier and make yourself a copy. It also has a PDF or a QR code so that you can scan, just print it off if you don't have the a flatbed scanner. It's hard because there's going to be people, and there already have been people, I've seen it on people who've been downloading it, who are sharing the PDFs with friends. Like, oh, you don't have to buy the pattern, I'll just give you the PDF. I really hope people don't do that, because I want to be able to do the right thing in giving you as many options as possible. And I can only do that when I trust that y'all aren't going to go sharing them with friends and violating the copyright. So I don't know. We're just gonna trust that we're all gonna be good people, right? But yeah, Deborah, how you sew it is, this video will be here. You can watch it over and over again. You can rewind, play it again, rewind, play it again. I'll be here. And then these are, I got all of the pieces onto, this is the jewelry organizer pattern that came out, I want to say last month, but it was actually at the beginning of this month. And so this is volume 1 right here. These are the ones that we just did. So I did them with tassels the first time. And just, I love how different it looks in a different color. Right? Isn't that fun? The economy blocks, which is the exact same ones that I'm wearing. I'm just wearing them again in different fabrics. This is the mini log cabin. This one you can make as a single, but I did them as doubles to make them dangly. The bigger heart, which also here I made as a necklace. The simple triangle, the kind of cat's eye, oh, pull that off. That little cat's eye diamond, and then the triangle, that one's simple. I love how simple that one is. This is kind of the economy block, but made as a circle. This is all volume 2. These are the small bowls. This one's a zipper pull. I love this one. This is the arch. It's hard to see this one against the color of the fabric, but that's the little braid. This one to me is now an avocado, but it's designed to be like a jewel in the middle of like a larger pendant, and then this kind of like archway design. And then volume 3 is over here, which is all of our holiday stuff. I've got cupcakes. I made a bunch of those. Tulips for Mother's Day. Some patriotic stars, but you don't have to add the stripes. You can just have the stars if you want. And I definitely want to make myself a pair of just the stars. Maybe that'll be the next video. We'll see. Maybe I'll do another live, and we'll do that one in the next live. These are the Easter earrings. The hearts come with optional stripes as well, so you can just make the hearts. You can make the heart stripes dangly like this, or you can secure the stripes top and bottom, just like the stripes are secured here top and bottom. The evergreen trees, and then pie slices, because hello, and then some ghosties, because the ghosties were just so cute and I couldn't help myself. So 3 different patterns, so it's just 3 patterns. You get 24 different designs. It's actually more, it's like 25 if you count the that the hearts can be made 2 ways. The hearts can be made whether with stripes or without stripes. I guess 26 if the stars can be made with stripes and without stripes. But those are just variations to me on the same thing. So it's 24 designs, 3 different patterns, plus hardware kits are coming in. I got these are the ones that came in already for me. The rest they're coming in as soon as the port's clear. They're coming in. And then where'd you go? My ballpoint turning tool. She's somewhere around here. Oh, she dropped on the ground. Ballpoint turning tool for turning out the corners. And then you have everything that you need. The ghosts made me think of Pac-Man, right? Aren't they fun? You can make them in Pac-Man colors for like an 80s themed party and do them in like you have Pac-Man ghosts in your ears. That would be fun. All right, friends, I have to run. That's all the time that I had for today, but I'm so excited that we got one done. How cute is that? Got one done. Just have to do the other one and then I'll have fun earrings. And again, you can make these shorter. You don't have to, if you just want 4 to make it a little bit of a shorter earring, or 5, you don't have to do all 6 if you don't want to do all 6. It's totally up to you. All right, friends, that's it for today. I'm glad that y'all enjoyed it. There are definitely more videos coming up. I definitely have one. It's already scheduled for Monday, which is on attaching all the hardware in different ways. So that's going up on Monday. And I will have more tutorial videos showing you how to do this because we want to make our own quilted jewelry. It's just fun. Thanks so much for watching, my friends. Make sure if you haven't given this video a thumbs up and hearts, do that. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Do that. Subscribe. And I can see there's more people watching than there are thumbs up, y'all. Excuse me. So that's it, friends. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be looking out for your comments, and I'll see you right here real soon. Bye for now.